Yo, what's up guys? It's been a minute since I played DBD and this just gave me a good excuse to play it. I'm still relatively new, so if you want to disregard any of the things I'm saying, by all means. Though, I do want to talk on Karsue because I think it'd be very interesting. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but I think she's very interesting in terms of a killer, and like I said, it gives me a good excuse to come back to the game for a time period. Anyways, I think she plays a bit more like Plague, Unknown, and Spirit, and that's sort of how I would say her tech and how she plays, or at least feels like, to me, after watching people play and then like playing it myself. So, to sort of break it down a bit. At first, when we're talking about Plague, it's obvious because it's a Torment ability, as well as its final form, or the second stage of it, is Broken, except it doesn't really play the same as Plagues. Plagues lingers, and you want to essentially infect everything as quick as possible, and that's very much extremely beneficial. You just can go around infecting everything. With her, it works almost a bit more like Unknown, in the sense that it's probably going to be more centered around chases. You can leave it on someone for a time period, but since there's 6 mushrooms at the very beginning, at least in the PTB, this is something you can get rid of very quickly, as well as every single time you go into your head form, you always drop a mushroom after a while. I don't think it's instantaneous. Due to this, she plays differently because the limited resources aren't the same as when you're going against Plague, as well as they don't linger the same as they would with Plague. You can get rid of them far quicker because there's more mushrooms, and the more that the killer is going in and out of their human form to head form, the more mushrooms there are. Though in the PTB, it isn't really a strong playstyle to just focus on her infection and just let that happen, because a stage 2 can only happen passively. You cannot infect further like you could with Plague, and it does happen passively with Plague, but once again, still, it feels very different with her because it lingers on things. It does not do so with Krasue. So with her, it's more playing around at Leech 1 than it is the second stage. Second stage will only happen if someone cannot find a mushroom and there's limited resources, which is going to be a thing if you get everyone infected and you're being very, very careful with how many times you happen to go into head form, as well as being very specific on where you're putting them, at least if you can, to some degree. And the next way that she plays like Unknown is rather straightforward. I imagine you can already tell that if you've played her or just looked at people play her. Her projectile bounces and goes all over the place. So, of course, you can use this, as a direct projectile and directly hit the survivor, though this can be a bit harder in some places, especially since they can dodge it. But if they're in a building, nearby objects, this is where you can very much get into bounce tucks and have it bounce off something and splatter. Now, of course, there can be a bit of RNG to this, or a bit of skill, getting used to knowing how it bounces and where to aim it at. But nonetheless, it's something that can be very much part of her kit, and it's also very similar to how you can with a lot of range killers make things like pallets and windows not at all safe. Of course, it doesn't immediately do damage. It just infects. It guarantees that you infect them. If you try doing it with the head form, it only does 1/3 of the power, meaning you'll have to hit them 3 times instead of just hitting them with this power. So obviously, it's extremely inefficient to do it the other way. The way this plays, also like Unknown, is sort of like I already said with the mushrooms, is that you can place them sort of in a controlled manner to some degree by knowing when you swap in and out of your form. I know this is a stretch of a correlation, but I think of it the same way in my head as you would with Unknown's clones, where you can to some degree control where you place them. In this case, you can to some degree control where you are and where you go into head form. Now, obviously, you shouldn't always go out of your way to a dead zone or something to potentially leave the mushroom so it's out of the way, but it does give you at least a basic concept of information. Let's say you pop off of one side of the map for whatever reason, 2 or 3 survivors are there, and you just infect a lot of people, you try getting a lot of hits, you maybe even snowball a little bit, but you have to go in and out of your form maybe like 4 times over there, because people just going everywhere, maybe a pallet, you try to grab someone, you get pallet hit, all that kind of shit, right? Pallet saved. Anyways, you go over there, maybe you turned like 5 times over there. So now there's 5 mushrooms over there. Now, it's important to note just where they are. You really can't teleport to them like Unknown can, but it is just a good thing in the back of your head to be like, okay, this is an area where all of this happened. So the next bit I would say is that she plays like Spirit, in the way that in her head form, she plays and has similar 50-50s, though she also has a bit of something else. We'll talk about the bit of something else before we get to the Spirit side. Obviously, if you've played her or watched people play her, she's faster than most. It reminds me of mother-daughter ring with Spirit. Anyways, I think it's 120, right, like speed. But when she flies around the map, you cannot break pallets and you cannot gain Bloodlust. However, you are faster at vaulting pallets and windows. So you can, on the more narrow pallets especially, windows, they're almost always narrow to some degree, but you can block them off by just basically vaulting them and standing in the way and body blocking. If it's not a narrow one, they can go around you, and in some of the more tight ones, they technically can too as a survivor. It just requires a bit more finesse to do so, not the perk, just in general. But it's almost impossible, and you can almost guarantee a hit if you can manage to land it and it's timed well as it's based on the survivor's interaction there. But on the more tight ones, this is a guaranteed body block. You can hit them, and the only thing they can do is basically run away from the loop. When in her head form, you also have access to her, I forget the direct name of it, the head flight, right? Headlong flight. Anyways, while doing it, you have no collision, meaning you could fly through people, and body block, same way, similar to Wraith. But when you're not in that situation, you can't body block and you're already at a loop. She plays similar to Spirit with her 50/50s, because when you go into your headlong flight, her head flies at a very low level. On some loops, it can be very hard to keep track of, but in general, since it flies at a low level and you're so fast, it is a back and forth the same way you would with Spirit. Except with Spirit, obviously you don't see her, you just hear her. In this case, you can see the Krasue, but it's still this back and forth of trying to gauge which side she's going to go to. So you can do the whole pop one side, go the other side, and go all the way back around. You technically faked, what, twice there? You fake which way you're going to go, and that be the constant loop at certain loops that you're going to have to do. It is a key thing to note that unlike Spirit, when you come out of your phase and you come out very smoothly into an attack, you cannot do that directly. She has a brief window of time where you cannot attack when you come out of your headlong flight. But if you time this correctly, and you get good at this whole 50/50, you can do it almost every time. Now, I can't guarantee you land it every time, because same way with Spirit, if the survivor is being patient and isn't as anxious with this, then you're going to have a bit of a harder time, but that's also just for overall counterplay and, skill expression on both sides. But I would say that this is basically another thing when it comes down to tech of how you have to play her. It's also important to note that while in head form you don't have a normal basic attack, you have a lunge more similar to Demogorgon's power or Chucky's power at the very beginning. There's not a lot of turn that you could do with it, so you can't do what you would do with a basic lunge and go all the way around a corner. But in open areas, it really dominates. It's a little bit longer than the normal lunge if you were to do it straight, so you can technically cover a little bit more distance, but also, like I just said, since you can't turn with it well, it becomes its own little downside where when you want to hit something, you need to be aware of where the survivor may turn to try to dodge it, and how you can do that at the early stages of a lunge to affect your direction, as well as get a little bit of a curve. You can get a little bit at the very beginning. And sometimes if you hit it just right, I imagine there's a bit more tech to this. If you play Demogorgon and Chucky, you may know it a bit more. Or even Blight a little bit. I think it's more hug tech in a sense. But if you aim it right, you can technically ride the hitboxes of whatever is around you and go in a straight line. It'll give you a little bit of a curve in a direction rather than you just hitting something and completely stopping. And in my opinion, she's very fun for that very reason. That and the splatter. I really love a range killer in a sense. I believe that's already known for me from what I have played on the channel. Though I think I've only played Plague. Anyways, I enjoyed this a bit. I don't really do this kind of stuff, so if you guys want more DBD, let me know. I want to play more of this game, I just haven't given myself a lot of time to do so. I may end up doing so after I finish Resident Evil, which would be probably a lot because I have more than one Resident Evil I want to play through, so it'll probably be a minute, who knows, maybe I'll throw it in the middle, off to the side after a bit. But for right now, I think this is the only DBD one I have. So yeah, I haven't played the game much since the last time I played, so yeah. Other than that, hope you have a great day. I'll catch you homies next LowTide. I did that wrong. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, click that like button. If you guys are new to the channel, click that subscribe button to meet up me in another one of my videos. If you guys wish to be notified in your email and on YouTube when I upload, click that notification bell. Other than that, hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you homies next LowTide. There it is.